Beautiful. Well, good evening and welcome to the Proactive Caring Home and School Transition Exchange. My name is Dr. Larry Force, and I'm a professor of psychology at Mount St. Mary College and director of the Center on Aging and Disability Policy, along with my dear friend, Dr. Jeffrey Kahana. We're so glad that you were able to join us tonight. As you know, this is an extension of our initial grant, which was the Proactive Caring Grant. Elaine Sproat has joined us as well, and she is the project director. And Peggy Pisano, as a school psychologist advocate, is here, as well as Lisa Nathan as the parent with the lived experience and meditator. So we're so glad that everyone is here and some of our guests tonight. Okay, so we do appreciate that. Doris and Kaylee's joining us as well. You know the format. The format is that Lisa and Peggy zero in on a topic during the course of the week, and then they build it out, and then we come together. Sometimes it's just an exchange between the two of them. Sometimes we have guests on. Later on in the season, we will have some additional guests on. And then the strength of our program is we capture this video cast by Zoom, and then we send it out through our mailing list. And we know that right as now, as we're speaking, that when we do send something out, we're reaching over 4,000 families, individuals, and agencies. So we're very proud of that. The topic tonight is stepping out of your comfort zone, putting your best foot forward in a stress-free way. So at this point, what I'd like to do is I'd like to turn it over to Lisa and Peggy, and I don't know who's actually going to launch this tonight, but please help us have a better understanding of this topic. And thank you so much, both of you. You're muted, Peg.
Mute. Okay, am I still
Hi,
muted?
Peggy.
Can you hear me? Okay.
Yes.
So again, I think I was going to begin tonight, and our topic, as Larry said, is stepping out of your comfort zone and putting your best foot forward in a stress-free way. So I'm going to start by just giving some examples of rapid heartbeat, fast breathing, tense muscles, sleeping difficulties, stomach aches, eating too much, eating too little. And those things all have in common one thing. They are all, at times, responses to stress and anxiety. And sometimes those stress and anxieties are created by transitions in our life. Now, living in the world at large and simply growing up every day, we go through many transitions. We, as adults, go from young people to older people. And so we just transition all the time. From work to school, we change jobs, all kinds of different things. And sometimes transitions are positive and sometimes they're negative. And even happy transitions, perhaps the birth of a child or a marriage or buying a house, those are transitions that still can create undue stress and anxiety because they're a new experience. And that newness is something that's unfamiliar and it's challenging. And so when you're faced with things that are challenging and new and unknown, they sometimes create those levels of stress and anxiety. So in life, we're generally on autopilot. Things happen to us. We weather those storms. We go through life and we make changes accordingly. But when something difficult occurs, that's a transition or change, and that's a new environment with sort of a new normal. And that makes us vulnerable as people. And again, sometimes creates levels of stress and anxiety. So when we look to change, we have to sometimes redefine what we do, and we have to redefine ourselves. And so sometimes in transitions, those things occur, those redefining and reevaluating and looking at ourselves and our environment is just a new way of looking at the world. When parents have children with disabilities, those transitions sometimes are very significant and sometimes create real serious anxieties. These are very uncharted waters, even if you've had other children before. But those are things that are completely normal because we just don't know. And so sometimes our hopes for our children have to change. Sometimes we have to modify or adapt the way we looked at the world or the way we looked at our children. And so all of those things, those transitions and those changes can create stress and anxiety. So we're going to try to look at some strategies for overcoming those stressors and anxieties. And I'm going to start with some kind of, sort of behavioral strategies. And then I think Lisa's going to join us later, or she's here now, but I'm going to talk to us about some ways of breathing and meditating sort of through those stressful and transitional periods. So research tells us that building resilience in people are positive ways of attempting to overcome some of those changes and those difficult transitions. So how do we build resilience? And how do we then later on cope with anxiety and stress? So some of the following strategies are some of the things that the research has said. So one, I think, important thing is try to look at the present. Try not to look too far back and try not to look too far forward, because you can't change the past and you don't really know what the future is going to bring. So staying in the moment as best possible is a strategy that sometimes helps with that stress, because if we, kind of ponder too much about what was or what will be, then we continue to create that level of stress for ourselves. Another kind of strategy that the research talked about was evaluating your level of control in the particular situation. So there are some things you can control and there are some things that you can't control. So those things that you can control and take responsibility for, you can ask yourself, what can I do better this time? How can I change that? But the things that you can't control, sometimes you have to try to just let happen and see where it leads you. Acknowledging your feelings and acknowledging that this is now a new normal, that I have feelings and emotions that are difficult, and I may not like them, or I may like them, and try to explore those feelings, but also embrace those emotions, because they're real and they, impact transitions and changes impact everybody in different ways. And so you have to try to, hold on to what you're feeling and explore and review those things relative to your own self. Check your thoughts and remind yourself of the times that you successfully navigated difficult situations, so that you can perhaps use those skills again in these particular situations. So when you're checking out, and you can say to yourself, well, when I had this experience, I did such and such, and then try to use that same skill again in these transitional or changing times. Look at your priorities, look at your goals, look where you want to go, but know that there are small steps that are going to lead you there, and you're not going to get to the end result immediately. So small successive steps are positive successes towards a particular goal that you might have. And that small steps go towards the greater goal. Keep in mind and keep some of the things that are familiar to you, because what's familiar is often comforting. So even in the face of stress and anxiety and transition and change, try to keep some things sort of as normal as possible, so that you feel that sense of comfort around you. Try to keep up with some hobbies or some preferred activities. I mean, we all need to have some positive things in our lives, even when things are stressful. So if it's you enjoy walking, or if you enjoy exercising, if you enjoy, being with your pets, whatever it is, try to keep some of those things in the face of your transition and change, so that that comfort zone is still there. And, be good to yourself. Identify some of those negative thoughts and feelings and see if they're really accurate in the face of the situation. If they're negative, try to replace some of those negative thoughts with something positive, some positive way of looking at the same situation, because that may help change your perception of what's actually happening. Keeping a diary. Sometimes keeping a diary is a good way to kind of process what you were thinking and process the information later on, and see what did I do correctly, or what did I, like about what I did, and what didn't I like? And so then you can use that as a tool for the future to change perhaps, what you might want to do. Don't expect to understand all your feelings, especially with transitions and changes, because those are new feelings. There are new activities, there's new things in your life, and they're not always, making you feel so comfortable. But you have to try to keep in touch with yourself and try to care for yourself as well. So, there's an old saying that if you don't care for yourself, you can't care for somebody else. So try to keep some positive thoughts about yourself. Again, try to keep some positive activities. Listen to your body, what your body is telling you. If your body's telling you it's tired, then take a nap. If your body's telling you it's hungry, it's time to eat. So you have to kind of get in touch with who you are and what you're feeling. I think identifying support people, and I think for people who are going through transitions with respect to special education students and students with disabilities, I think identifying significant others is a really important thing. You can identify other teachers, other parents. There are parent groups that you might want to get involved in that would help support your thoughts about, where am I going with my child? What's the future look like? People who have sort of been down the road and the path before you. Also, if necessary, seek out a therapist or even a best friend, somebody to kind of talk things through, a spouse, a friend, a therapist, whomever, but, somebody to process that information with, so that you get the level of support that you need. And I guess one of the most important things I thought was, know that there are going to be mistakes, because humans are imperfect and we don't always do things perfectly. And so I think the good news about that is that you can reevaluate and review and kind of look over where you went, down the wrong path, if you will, and try to reevaluate that and try to do something different in the future. And then I think and I think Lisa's going to give us more information about this, but, try to be kind to yourself, and again, be in the present, and try not to spend too much energy. And I know it's sometimes difficult worrying about what's going to be or what was and so on. So if you stay in the present, and I think Lisa's going to give us some strategies for doing that, that's a way to, keep yourself positive and be kind to yourself. So some of those strategies are ways to build resilience in the face of change, in the face of transition. And I think Lisa's going to offer some more strategies in a meditative sort of way.
Well, before Lisa presents, I just want to say that you did a great job with that.
Thank you.
Because we had a conversation yesterday with a group that has approached us about presenting at their conference in May, and one for caregivers and parents. And one of the things they said is that they wanted parents to walk away with tools that they could use immediately. And what you've just highlighted here are realistic tools that people can put into their life. It's a practice.
Mm-hmm.
I think our collective voice throughout this whole initiative has been, we're under no illusion that people are going to watch or participate in one of our video casts and then go sit on a yoga mat for 45 minutes in a lotus position. If that happens, that's wonderful. But the more important thing is to be able to do small steps. Lisa continually talks about that focal point, which is so important, because I think, and when she does talk about it, it brings us back to the moment, we're almost like standing next to her when it hits her. I don't want to do this anymore. I don't want to live this type of life anymore. And as a result of that, doing something different. So nice job, Peg.
Thank
Lisa?
You.
Hi, guys. You ever notice that you can't close a door on a cat, because as soon as you close the door, they want to go out, right? Anyway, thank you, Peggy. And you brought up lots of great points that I can segue into. So, there's an expression that life begins outside of your comfort zone. And that's all fine and good, but what does this really mean? And well, how can I get there? We all have a place where we're most comfortable, our comfort zone. And then we have places outside of our comfort zone with varying degrees of stress attached to them. And learning how to get out of your comfort zone, to step out of it successfully, is finding that balance, what's called optimal anxiety. This is a phrase I just learned, where your stress levels are a little bit higher than normal, but they're not out of control. And well, why would I want to get there, out of my comfort zone? Well, it's where you grow as a person. It's where you gain insight into yourself. You become more rounded and flexible. You learn the value of risk and failure, and it's where you can become your best self. But you need to find balance in doing this. And everybody's comfort zone is different, and yours is going to be different than your partner's, than your children's. And as humans, we're wired to feel safe. We're most comfortable in familiar surroundings, and it can be scary on the other side of that comfort. And as humans, we're essentially creatures of habit. We stay with what we know, but the downside is that we can avoid. And when we avoid the anxiety and discomfort of stepping out of our comfort zone, very often we end up increasing the anxiety in the long run. And this is about our perception of the unknown. Very often it's our own perception of uncertainty, and humans don't like uncertainty, and the unknown that drives our stress response. And the other thing is that we fear, again, fear of the unknown. You may be fearful of new things and you want to change, but you can't think your way out of fear. And fear is also something we need for our survival. It's all about our knowledge and balance. So how can you jump the chasm between comfort and certainty with wanting to grow and venture out of your comfort zone into the stress of uncertainty? And this is where meditation and mindfulness really shine. So what do? Well, you show up. We get so mired in unrealistically high expectations and then fear we won't be able to meet them. And what if we just showed up without putting so much pressure on ourselves? And you can start small. Big can be overwhelming and paralyzing. Everybody knows that. So if you set a small goal for yourself that's just outside of your comfort zone, you can change one aspect of your routine. It could be as easy as finding a new route to work, starting a conversation with someone you don't know, trying a new recipe. The idea is that even something small can signal your brain that, oh, this change isn't so bad. It's not so threatening. And then, you can question your inner critic. And this is really a biggie, and it's certainly a biggie in the meditation world, because what are the untrue, the word untrue thought loops swirling in your head that you habitually tell yourself? And would you talk to your friend the same way that you talk to yourself? So how can mindfulness help in stepping outside my comfort zone? So mindfulness gives us the access to our brain's operating system and gives us the ability to be an objective observer. It's like we become a witness to our own thoughts, all those thought loops, and thus be able to understand the habitual pattern of thinking that really is harming us. So once we can understand and see these patterns, literally like see them, then we can start to change them. And so mindfulness can help you start to, one, be curious, because fear loves to lurk in the shadows, and shining a light and examining the fear lessens it and its hold on you. You can be aware, because what are those thought loops in your head? What are you telling yourself, and how is your body responding to those negative thoughts and stress? Because in our meditation sessions, we always come into our body to see how our body is feeling. And you can lean into it. And this seems contrary, like to old logic, because all too often we run away from unpleasant thoughts and emotions. But here you can, if you lean into them, you can learn, you learn to lean into it and shine the light on those unpleasant thoughts and feelings, and it will loosen the grip on them, the grip they have on you. And as you said, Peggy, be kind to yourself. Mindfulness is a judgment-free zone. Everyone knows the phrase that we're our own worst enemy. And it's time to learn how to be your own best friend. And self-compassion can foster an incredible amount of self-knowledge and growth. So it's about accepting where you are. You can only start your journey from where you are right now. There's a quote by Maria Robinson, who was a child developmental specialist, and said, "Nobody can go back and start a new beginning, but anyone can start today and make a new ending." So with that, Larry, if we want to do a little meditation session or something else, or
Yeah, I think it would be great if you could walk us through a meditation session, because
okay.
look, think about the title of this, stepping out of your comfort zone. And part of it is you want to feel comfortable and relaxed enough to do that. But part of it, you want to be knowledgeable enough, knowing how to get back, how to relax.
Right.
I like that whole thing that you talked about, that optimal, anxiety. I mean, it kind of, it's, I remember, you're bringing back memories from theories of motivation in psychology. And there was an old law called the Yerke-Dodson law. I haven't thought about this in 30 years. We just talked about it. And the Yerke-Dodson law was that no anxiety, no movement. Too much anxiety, no movement.
Right.
Because you're paralyzed. But just that optimal level, just to get you, motivated. And
Right.
On a good day, the things that and the tools that you and Peggy are talking about would be extremely valuable. Today, COVID world, I think it was more predictable when we were completely quarantined. There was more of a sense of a rhythm to it. Now we're coming in, we're not sure how far we're going out. We're vaccinated. What does that really mean? Some places are opening, some places are not. We're getting mixed messages. And I think if at any time that we need these tools that you and Peggy are talking about, it's right now. So yes, if you could walk us through an exercise, that would be great.
Sure. So, one of the things that you learn after a little while, I've taken it for granted now because I've been doing this for a little while, is to understand how we can observe our thoughts. It's, what I said, in my little thing there. And we'll work on that a little bit. I'll bring that into the meditation because that's where you learn to really grow and to really get a sense of what's going on in your mind, so you can really start to grow and bloom as a person. So you can really become your best self. All right. So anyway, so let's go here. We're sitting. If you're sitting, feet flat on the floor, everything's connected. Your hands just resting, comfortably in your lap. I'm going to start with our breath. We're going to connect to our breath because our breath is our connection between our mind and our body. So we're going to just take a couple of nice, calming, cleansing breaths in through our nose and out through your mouth like you're blowing out a candle. And when you extend the exhalation, you're actually connecting to your nervous system and turning on the rest and digest mode. You're getting out of your fight or flight response. You're becoming more relaxed. So let's do that again, breathing in through our nose. Nice long exhale through our mouth. Let's do that one more time. And as we exhale, we're going to connect to our body and where we're sitting on our chairs. So inhale and exhale. Now we can just breathe naturally in through our nose and out through our nose. We'll relax our eyes, our jaw. We hold a lot of tension in our jaw, our shoulders. Make sure our shoulders aren't hunched. And just connect to where we're sitting. And as we do this, we're just going to connect to our breath. We connect to our breath to bring us to the present moment. Because we're not thinking about what happened at work. We're not worried about what's happening tomorrow. We're just here right now. And it's in the here and now where we can change our lives. So our breath is coming in through our nostrils and out through our nostrils. And you're going to put your attention right there where the breath is coming in and coming out. When we put our attention there, we're growing our ability to stay focused in the present moment, in the here and now. And your mind will wander. Your mind is meant to think. We're not trying to stop thinking. We're just trying to focus our attention on a single point, which just happens to be our breath, because our breath is always present and available to us. And every time our mind wanders, we're just coming back to our breath. And what's most important is not to judge, not to say, I can't do this, I'm doing it wrong, how come I can't keep my mind still? That's not necessary. You just bring your attention back to your breath. And the idea is not to engage in the thoughts that are coming in. Just like if you're a boat anchored on the water, those thoughts are just floating down the river. You're just letting them float away while you're anchored. And the more you do it, the better you become at it, just like going to the gym and working out. And you're going to be kind to yourself. Be careful of that judgmental voice. Watch what you're saying to yourself. You want to come back, be compassionate as if you were talking to your best friend. You can take a moment throughout the day, even just to take a couple of nice breaths, just to calm ourselves. The more you do this, the more you'll notice if you're starting to react. Just come to your breath. Okay. And if you can breathe, you can meditate. Just remember, be compassionate. The more you're compassionate to yourself, the more you can be compassionate to others. All right. Thank you.
You know, I use clinical hypnotherapy in my practice. And what do I tell people? It's breathing, you know, it's breath work and the use of imagery, breathing in and the use of imagery. And people say, well, can I ever be hypnotized? Yeah, I mean, because what is hypnosis? It's the use of breathing technique and imagery. And whenever I bring the person back to the moment, just like you did, I always say to them, so how you doing? How you doing? And if you were to ask us how we're doing, I think there would be a universal, answer. We're doing real good. And I really think that, what started off as a discussion, which now has turned into a practice in itself, is the unified voice of you and Peggy coming to the table from two different lenses, but really addressing the topic and giving two great types of tracks of resources and techniques to be able to apply this. I love what you said. If you can breathe, you can meditate. Because I think some people are just so taken by the word that they'll never be able to get to it, and never be able to do it, and how they do it. And you keep always talking about the fact of, No, it's not you that's talking about, it's Stacy. It always mentions you. That says that, when you gave her permission to have thoughts, instead of trying to, keep them in their head, keep them away, she realized that this was something that she could do. That idea of, not being judgmental. But I would like to hear and offer discussion and, and dialogue and hear from the voices of others that are with us tonight. So should we go alphabetical? Should we how should we go? Should we I don't think there's any need to do that. But please, Doris and Jeff and Kaylee's and Elaine, what do you think? Reactions?
There were so many nuggets of wisdom in all the things that were said. It was almost as if I'm going to probably take a look at those notes that you usually post on the Digital Resource Center, because you need to dwell on each one and think about each one. It was almost moving so fast in terms of all the wonderful suggestions that I think we need to individually think about each one and how it might apply to our lives.
I agree. Kaylee's reaction?
I thought Peggy was talking. I couldn't hear her.
Oh, Peg, you're still on mute. Sorry. You have to unmute yourself.
I did, but it doesn't seem to want to work. But now, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. So what I was starting to say is that I think it's important to note that some things might apply to some people and some not.
Mhm.
And so some of them are just, strategies. There's a whole bunch of them. And we have to take what's good for us. Similar to, I think, what Lisa is saying is that, some people take meditative strategies to a significant degree, whereas other people do it, throughout the day, just rebreathing, rechecking with yourself. So I think because there's all different strategies that work for different people, and we have to pick and choose what's best for us.
And I know this particular discussion was targeted at people who are caregivers for, for the most part, their children with developmental disabilities, but what you were talking about applies to anybody.
Right. Because I think, as I said earlier, is that transition and change happens throughout our lifespan. Obviously, there's all kinds of different changes depending on how old you are and what you're going through. So yes, I think those strategies can apply to anyone, but specifically they could also apply to people who have difficulty with the change and transitions that they're facing with their children with disabilities. So it's for all of us, I guess.
Absolutely. Kaylee's, please.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much, Peggy and Lisa. I really enjoyed hearing your understanding of this topic, and thank you, Larry, for having this forum. It's really important. I am a meditator, and I'm very familiar with mindfulness, but I just resonated with everything that you said, and I would echo Elaine a bit with the idea of having folks understand where they are when they come to this type of teaching, because they're going to be along a continuum. This is brand new. Some have been doing it for a little bit and they had problems with it, didn't understand it. And then others who appreciate it, who for me, like I understand exactly what you're talking about. And thank you, Lisa, for that time of meditation. I always welcome it because I can go into this deep space in myself. And yet the voices come. This is an example of what you say about thinking. With all this experience I have with meditation, the thinking mechanism in us is just sometimes it's resisting all the time. And so there is an experience of that, and folks to understand that comes with the territory. But in time, for me, what I have is a sort of a split mind. I let the chatter go on until and if I ignore it enough, it sort of fades away. And then I do get in a quiet space. And I also would like to, again, echo something I think Elaine said is, uh, in my own background and practice, I am a therapist and a spiritual counselor, psycho-spiritual counselor, and just helping people to, with some of the steps that you mentioned, Peggy, just helping people to begin the process of cultivating a personal relationship with themselves. And that's what these practices, I think, bring people to terms with. Well, just who am I in this experience that I'm having in this life, with this point of where I am at? How am I reacting to it? How do I understand it? And the steps that the two of you talk about, I think, are essential in helping people to begin to get to that process of self-understanding, and in that way, being able to cope better with significant change in life. I certainly find that everything that you've said, I've had to use in meeting the challenges of transition and changes.
Thank you. Doris?
Hi, everyone. So this is like a meant to be kind of Zoom that I'm attending today. Thank you, Lisa, for the email. I'm so happy that I, registered and I attended because for the last couple of weeks, I've been starting meditating and yoga. And I just came back from a meditation retreat in Pine Bush. So I wanted to go see what that was all about. It's like a Buddhist retreat, but it was more meditation and more trying to disconnect from the world of electronics and just have a quiet, peaceful weekend without the interruption of your phone, your TV, your family. So I'm glad that I, attended this Zoom, and it was, I took a lot of notes. So a lot of the stuff hit me, you know, hard because it just, a lot of the things that you said, Lisa and Peggy, it's just something that I'm just coming now to realize in my life that I should be doing for myself. I have a 20-year-old son with autism, and it hasn't been easy. And I don't know who else. I know Lisa has a son, and that's how I know Lisa, from being moms of children with disabilities. But right now it's just during COVID also was very difficult for him and for us. So that's why I started doing meditation and yoga, and also he started doing yoga with me just so he can try to quiet his body and his mind. So far it's been working. That's it. But I'm so happy to be here, and it was great. It was
I have to tell you, Doris, we're so glad you're here.
yeah, it was a great meeting.
We have a digital
Stacy.
resource. Hi, Stace. We have a digital resource center.
Okay.
It's a website called proactivecaring.org,
Okay.
and it has a tremendous amount of resources on it.
Mm-hmm.
We have a connection with Lisa, you have a connection with Peggy, and Elaine has a lot of information as well. So
Mm-hmm.
the fact is, feel free, please, to reach out to us.
Okay.
Dr. Jeffrey Kahana, my dear, dear, dear friend.
Oh, you guys are great. I mean, I thoroughly enjoyed hearing Peggy's presentation today, Lisa's practice today. I watched last week, and Peggy described how there are these different stages when you're a parent, and you have to deal with those, with the school district, from the early period to the late period. And I listened to Lisa talking about how things are not linear, and that there are sometimes progress, but it's glacial. I think that's how you put it, Lisa. And I heard Stacy last week with your really insightful kind of words about how you have adopted and incorporated these techniques, and just wonderful stuff. And of course, Larry is a wonderful and such a skillful and humanistic moderator. So, it's great. And then to hear Elaine's comments about, we have to break these things out because there's so much, really so much good stuff. And I certainly agree with that. as to Doris, I don't know if you went to, was it part of the Plum Village system that you were in Pine Bush? Is that Thich Nhat Hanh's?
It was called the Dharma Maya Center for the Well Living for
Is that part of, I don't know, Kayla's, by the way, I loved your comments. How wonderful and insightful. And I thought, I actually took a note on what you said, because you said we have to understand where we are when we come into this, from, you know, where we are in our own personal continuum. And that was a wonderful thought. And, you know, so there's just so much great stuff here. What can I say? Thank you.
Well, you know, Stacy has joined us, and you know, some of you might know her as Stacy, but I refer to her as Stacy Superstar, because she was just interviewed on this podcast called Salt of the Earth, and it's about a testimony to unsung heroes. And how she ended up getting there is that I nominated her for that. And how I ended up getting there is because a former student of mine, Hannah Shepard, nominated me for that. And the interesting thing is, it's like a game of tag. These two brothers out on Long Island, the Walker brothers, have created this podcast about celebrating people. And they bring in people and they interview them. And there's only one thing that you have to do, is you have to then tag the next person. And last week it was Stacy's turn, and she did a wonderful job. And I just sent out tonight the podcast to everybody and asked Elaine if she would send it out to the advisory council too. So Stacy, congratulations. Well received and well noted.
Thank you for the honor, Dr. Forrest, Larry. You know, one of the things I said on the discussion, and they made it really easy. They were great to talk with. And I had tuned into your story before I received an email from Kevin with the considerations of what I should think about before we talk. And listening to yours, it rolled right into then a talk from Brian Walker, telling us about what is his why mean. And that's WHY for anybody that hasn't already listened to any of their stories. What's your why? You know, what are you affecting? And they have an app called BYLR, Build Your Life Resume. And you know, what are you adding to, you know, your own kind of volunteer plate, or your ingredients within your family? They have a really interesting perspective. They were two great guys just growing this podcast and this app. Listening to Larry's story was so inspiring for me. I know you through this group a little more than a year now. We met on that campus that day, and Mount St. Mary was a game changer for me. Like you were saying before, Dr. Kahana, Lisa gave me permission to not slow my mind down, and it changed my life. You know, I always had a misnomer that you had to come to a meditative state and clear your mind. And I'm a fast-paced New Yorker, right? A go-getter. I'm like multitasking. My wheels are always spinning, and it's hard to sort of slow it down.
But
Stacey,
Stacey, last week when you said, I mean, I really took away two things, and I watched it on the video, but one is, no matter how much you're a good multitasker, you can only have one thought at a time in your mind. You emphasize that. And that really is so true. It's like you can only wear one pair of shoes, no matter how much you have.
that's a good analogy.
And, you know, and the other thing I really loved was your ladder, you know, that ladder example that you brought in, because I think that also shows we're not always going to be rushing on that fast-paced kind of escalator up. Sometimes our ladders go very slowly. And so I love that.
Yeah, agreed. It's true.
Yeah.
And at a different pace also, right? Small steps, big steps, and you're pacing. You're absolutely right. That's a good point to make with regards to that. So the podcast was great. By all means, thanks for sharing it. And I enjoyed having the conversation to discuss how I advocate and empower families, and what I have got out of not only my professional relationship with the group at Proactive Caring, which I am grateful for, always learning. But I think it's become a little bit personal too. I consider, you know, Dr. Force and Elaine, my friends. Lisa, Nathan, and I have been friends for a long time, and Peggy. I now understand we're alumni together from SUNY Oneonta, which makes me really happy. We'll talk more offside about that. but great stuff. You know, it's so great that you guys have been able to reinvent yourself under the quarantine and the COVID circumstance of 2020. Our story is of growth and growing forward and being able to stamp the model that you developed as a core team on the infield of some ball field when you grew the idea of let's get this grant and let's help advocate for families. And then you made it digital. And so now you've stamped it as permanent stuff. And we're creating these webinars with educational topics for families. I love our tagline. You have stress, we can help. What a great line. You know, I'm thinking you came up with that one, Dr. Force, but I'm not sure.
That was a combination in a discussion with myself and Teresa Drum in Buffalo.
It works.
In a
you know?
conversation, it was like, we have to get to it. What do you think? Got stressed? We can help. We have to. We were like, both of us were like, let's go.
And so thank you. You've helped me, you know, and you know, in the big picture, we say when we've helped one, we've helped many.
Absolutely.
You know.
Well, you've been such a value add to our, you know, movement as well. So thank you. So I think at this point, what we'll do is we will bring this to a close. Any summary statements? And Lisa, Peggy, anything as we now move on to, you know, the next time we get together, which will be in 2 weeks. The way that this program is working is that we, Lisa and Peggy, present every 2 weeks. On the off weeks, the group up in the Buffalo area running like a support group. And we met yesterday with the idea of, you know, how do we further crystallize this connection? And a lot of good things came out of it. And Elaine does a wonderful job in putting out the monthly newsletter and being able to identify what topics we're going to look at and stuff like that. So if we can be of help, or you see something that you would like to see or hear, you know, get in touch with us. You know how to do that. And we wish you the best for the next couple of weeks. All right. So thank you, Lisa. Thank you, Peggy. Great job.
All right, thanks, everybody.
Nice to
Good.
meet
Thank
you,
you for
Dora.
coming. Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Night.
All right.